I was completely wrong. This may be the best throwing thingamajig I've ever tried before. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Screen Tested. I am your host Tyrant, or you can call me Blade from Wish. I'm also wearing sunglasses inside because I'm Blade. I don't have any glitter on though because I don't like glitter. Alright, that is enough of this cringe shit. Yes, today we're going to be looking at Blades Glaive from the first film. Now, this is a really cool weapon. First off, because it's from the 90s. It's very fantasy, dark fantasy, which I enjoy. I enjoy that aesthetic. However, I'm very curious how functional it would be. I thought to myself, you know, I could make one of those. They're pretty cool. I mean, my thoughts are a little bit more involved than that, I would hope, but you get the idea. I thought it would be a good project for today's episode. Now, honestly, I don't think it's going to be that functional. I think it will be more fantasy than function. Now, you might be wondering why I think this design is a bit more fantasy than function. That's a good question. I like your questions. The answer is, well, first up, how the blade is held and thrown. First up, it's palmed right in the center of the blade. And the issue with that is you have two scythe blades, for all intents and purposes, facing the opposite directions of one another, meaning when you throw it, one blade will be heading away from you, and then the other blade will be heading towards you. And I don't know about you, but I don't want a sharp scythe blade heading towards me. Just in general, at all in life. If you actually look at the design of the blades, it's basically two scythes facing the opposite way, which is exactly what I got for today's project. But anyway, there's not much actual sharp blade, so when you throw it, one of those blades has to make connection for it to stick in. But there's a lot more edges that are unsharpened than sharpened, meaning I think it might not be too good at throwing, especially if it hits one of the surface areas where they're not sharp, which is most of the blade. You see what I mean? So I think it might be a bit more fantasy than function, but we will reserve our judgments for the end. Let's get started. So, starting out today's build project, I started with some scythes. Are they called scythes or hoes? I like a good hoe. Not, that sounded terrible. Anyways, I started off with two scythe blades. I set about removing the blades from these long handles, and I started with a hammer, realized that that was really stupid, and used the Dremel tool, because of course I'm going to use the Dremel tool. Ripped that out of its handle, and then I was left with the two blades. So now I keep saying blade. I wonder how many times I'm going to say blade in today's blade video. Anyways, I set about removing some of the razor sharp edges, because I need to hold and handle these things to grind away material. Now, I didn't remove all the edge, of course, because I want that razor sharpness. I just removed the bits where I'm going to be holding it with my hand. Next up, I used the tool of terror, an angle grinder. I hate angle grinders. I've always hated angle grinders. They're very useful, but they're very terrifying. Anyways, I used that to cut off a large chunk. Then I drilled some extra holes in both of the blades and used some screws to fasten them together, and then grabbed an old katana wrap I had and used that to give my hand something comfortable to hold on to in the center of the blade. And just like that, these things are done. I mean, they're not very complicated if we're being honest. Hunting vampires seems to be easy. I say that, but then I'd probably complain if I had to hunt vampires. So here is the finished Blade Glaive. Now, to prove how sharp this thing is, I will do a few test cuts, because this thing is kind of dangerous. This thing is f***ing sharp. So let's try a water bottle very quickly, just because I want to see what it feels like to go through a water bottle, and then we'll get to the throwing. This has a hole in it. I'll see if I can do it again. So, to throw this thing, I want to throw it kind of like this. That did take. There's a hole in this now. There's a hole right there. That actually did take a bit off. Took the top off. Not only that, it took the cap off. Look at that, holy sh**. cut straight through it. I think that cut it. It did. That is a huge gash right there. I expected it to kind of, you know, completely slice it, but it didn't. But that is a huge gash on some thick plastic. Alrighty, so I'm actually a bit surprised at how much I was able to get the blade to actually make contact with something to cut. I'm surprised because there's not very much blade and there's a whole bunch of crap, really. So let's see what happens when I throw it at our dummy. I think I might start with the blade method. So the blade method is kind of the most dangerous one because I have to kind of palm it, and when I throw it, make sure that these blades aren't coming to cut my wrists. So this way, because we want the edges to go into the target. Let's give it a... Okay. You know what, buddy? I don't need you right now. Don't take that to heart. I'm gonna aim at the tree and see if I can get it to stick in the tree. That should be a bit more of an easier medium. Kind of like that. This thing, look at that. Let's see if we can get this out. That's really in there. See, now I've got to be careful of underneath here where this sharp point is. Let's see. That's how much penetration we got. Let's see if we can do that again. I am actually kind of blown away by how much this is actually making contact with the tips and getting lodged into targets. This is actually surprising. Blades Glaive from the first movie. Who would have thought this thing is a monster? And this thing's getting deep, like a couple of inches. Because that is deep. We know that, guys. We know that that's deep. Yeah? Holy sh... This thing is... Sorry, I know I'm not doing much presenting. I'm just gonna let the results speak for themselves, to be honest. Alrighty, let's finish up. The Blade Glaive from the first Blade movie. This thing is one of the most functional throwing weapons I think I've ever tested, or even tried, or even seen, which is a complete surprise because I thought this thing was going to be useless. I was wrong. So I'm back here in the workshop, and honestly, this thing was a massive surprise. It is super functional. It's one of the best throwing weapons I think I've ever tested before. I was very wrong. I originally thought that because all these edges are unsharpened, that when you throw it, it's just gonna smack into those things and drop off. However, what I found was, if it hits anywhere in between here, not here, if it hits here, you're probably gonna miss, but if you hit anywhere here, what it actually was doing was hitting, and that was forcing that right angled blade to lodge into the tree. So it was, even when you missed, it was kind of forcing it to hit, which was really cool. This was just such an awesome throwing weapon, and I'm very happy that I got around to testing it, and I was wrong. I'm happy to admit when I was wrong. I thought it would be kind of useless. It's awesome. Blades Glaive from the first film. Now I know it's not 100% accurate, but this thing is a beast. It's awesome, and it was very fun to throw this thing around. Yeah, who would have thought? So that's going to be all for today's episode. I genuinely hope you enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification so that you get notified anytime a new episode comes out. That's going to be all for today. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.